Hey, everybody, welcome. Today is Wednesday, April 24th. I'm joined by Tracey. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Good to see you.
We're just going to be talking, just you and me, doing some student questions, talking about some results out of some of the jurisdictions that have just reported in the last few days, and updating you on some news and information about things that we've got going on. I want to start today by talking about, we're actually under the 100-day mark as we head towards the July exam. So this is for people to start their studies. I had an interesting conversation with some people earlier this week who were talking about whether they should start now or wait until May to begin their studies. And I pointed out to them that repeat bar takers in jurisdictions like Florida, the ones that are going to be most successful, have pivoted from their results and are starting to study now. And if you wait another 2 or 3 weeks, you're actually behind those people, right? They're getting more time than you're getting. And I said, it's not a good idea to give up that advantage. And I think that was illuminating to them. But it's an interesting way to think about it, isn't it, Tracey? That you don't want to let the people that have got results and have started get a couple of weeks head start on you, right, at this stage.
This is the time to put away whatever happened in the past and start looking at your future. This is the time to bring it, to sit down and rededicate yourself to your studies, but to see what went wrong last time and what needs to happen that's different.
Yeah, I think so. So we're going to talk about that in that context today as we start to go through. So let me begin with a discussion of the results. As we are recording this morning, New York results came out overnight, and there's no advance warning. You just get the email and the results come out. The numbers are not great in New York, as they have not been great in a number of places. And I want to just talk us through that. The overall pass rate in New York was 42%. The repeat taker pass rate was 33%. Those are very low numbers. And they continue the trend that we started to see a couple weeks ago in Florida and a couple of other jurisdictions. Now, along with the New York results, in the last week, we got results from the District of Columbia, 45% overall rate, 37 repeater pass rate. Then we had Maryland, very low numbers in Maryland, 36% overall pass rate. That is a stunning number, isn't it? 36% for overall and only 33% for repeaters. So a lot of repeat takers. It certainly skews the numbers. Massachusetts was an outlier, 49% overall pass rate. I can't believe that we're getting excited about numbers that are still less than 50%, and a 40% repeater pass rate. Very low numbers in these bigger jurisdictions. Texas still has not given an official accounting, which means I can't release those numbers yet. So these are challenging numbers. And I think the thing that I want to comment on is I'm looking at these results. The exam is not something you can back your way into. It is not something you can do the same old way you've been doing it. And if you're a repeat bar taker and you are not putting all the resources that you can into your studies, into using the tools that we would provide, then I think you've got a very tough road ahead of you. Probably one of the most frustrating things to me is to see scores from students in our course who have not been successful. And certainly we've got lots of success stories, but the people that aren't succeeding aren't doing anything extra. They're not changing what they're doing. And then they're somewhat bewildered by the fact that they don't get a passing score. But the reality is you cannot get the points you need doing what you've been doing if you've been falling short. Does that make sense to you when I say it that way?
It makes perfect sense to me. Take a day or so, figure out what you want for your future and to start living into that future. And we're here for you to help you with that, but you have to start with it.
Yeah. I and we've got a lot of tools. We're going to talk about some of those today. This is the honest statement. And I think there's so much dishonesty in the bar exam to start with, and probably even in our industry sometimes. But you cannot get the points you need unless you're willing to do something different. And that's not a question of us trying to sell you more stuff. It's that we have people that are setting up, taking the course, whatever level they're taking it at, and they're not getting the scores that they need. You're not going to see those numbers change dramatically because the exam doesn't reward that. And so if you've got to gain 2 points or 20 points, doesn't matter. You've got to do things differently. You've got to add more tools to your toolkit. And for us, I think that often means adding personal coaching. It means coming to these boot camp events. It means working on mindset. It means getting better at the skills that you need. Most of the people that I talk with and work with know the law pretty well. There are very few that just don't know it. The problem is they're not good at expressing it. And so they get into a rut and they just keep hitting that number, whatever the number is for them. And they just keep hitting it and hitting it. And when I say you got to do something different, I get the bovine stare of, I, I don't want to because it's expensive. And I get that. I totally get that. But if you don't make the investment, you are never going to get over the hump. And when I talk to the students that have been successful, they're the ones that made the investment in themselves. It's a pretty tight correlation there. And so I think it's incumbent on you to do what Tracy just said. Take a few days, grieve the result, think about it, analyze it, and then invest in yourself. You're not just buying more stuff, you're investing in your training. Kind of lunacy to keep going back and say, I'm just going to take the exam again. I had a student, unfortunately, who sent me a result this morning out of New York. And this student had failed the exam previously. And I had suggested that they make some changes and add some resources. And they said, oh, no, I'm just going to do what I did before. Guess what? Their score was exactly the same as it was before. And that just breaks my heart when I see that, because there's just no reason for that to happen. You've just got to give yourself a chance. And we've got the most affordable bar review probably in the country. Plus, we offer the buy now, pay later program, so you can spread this expense over a long period of time. You made a good point. I think it was last week, Tracy. Once you're licensed, the first couple of clients you've got probably pay for whatever you invested in your bar review. It's certainly something to consider. And what's the opportunity cost when you're not passing the exam?
Absolutely. You got to play the long game here, not the short game. The short game is,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this is going to cost me a little bit of money. I'm going to put this on a payment plan. I don't know if it's going to be worth it. The long game is, it is going to be worth it. When you pass the bar and you get into practice, this will be a blip on the radar as far as your expenditure. But with these low pass rates, especially for repeat bar takers, the reason we bring these to you, the reason we talk about this, it is abundantly clear to us, and it should be to you, that you cannot pass this exam without a lot of help. It's not possible, not with these pass rates.
When we're seeing a 42% overall pass rate in New York, remember, New York is where all the Harvard and the Yale and all the big law schools send graduates. And when they're only getting 42% overall pass rate, folks, if you're not a Georgetown, Harvard, UVA, Yale law grad at the top of your class, you're being naive to think that you're going to be able to just walk in and take this exam and pass it. These are majority of people failing the test. And it gives us no pleasure to say that whatsoever. But we are in a very different world than we were even a few years ago. And I don't see a change in this until we get to the next generation exam. And I don't know what next gen is going to be like. We're still a ways away. So if you're in the bar exam world today, you got to be bringing it all the way, I think, to be successful. I do want to talk about next gen since I mentioned it. Tracy, you've been following next gen. We've got a couple of announcements there, things that are happening, right?
You have Tennessee joined Next Gen. So now we have 17 states and Guam who have all opted in for Next Gen. The earliest possible time is July of 2026, but most states are extending that out to July 2027 and a few even into 2028. We still don't have a whole lot of information about what it's going to entail, but we know it's going to be more practically based than academically based. And so we are pivoting with this test to develop the materials to help you get through it. But honestly, we can't say much more right now because we don't know much more. We're waiting for some materials to come out this summer. But it's an exciting movement in the bar exam field. We're hoping that it will help more people pass. Right now, though, if you are listening to this broadcast and you are thinking that you're going to be taking the bar anytime in 2024, 2025, just concentrate on this bar prep because this is your option here. And this is what we're
Yeah.
concentrating on too.
Yeah. And honestly, until we hear from some of the big jurisdictions about whether or not they're going to adopt the next gen, we don't know what that universe is going to look like. Right now, those 18 jurisdictions are all small states. And so at this point, we're still talking about a very small number of bar takers in the country that would be affected by next gen. So although you may be hearing a lot about it, it's getting a disproportionate amount of press for the number of people it's actually impacting. If you're in the bar exam world right now, you're still taking the regular bar exam, and it's a long way away before next gen shows up. All right, I want to turn to the near future, using the tools that exist. We have a very important tool that we want to make available to everyone, and that is a virtual boot camp experience on May 10th and 11th. We will be working 2 full days. Tracey will be here, June will be here, Amanda will be here, but we will all be, God willing and healthy, available for this boot camp for 2 days. Now, during this boot camp, I'm going to be teaching photo reading. I'm going to be teaching mind mapping. Tracey's going to be talking about superego. We're going to be teaching essay writing. We are going to be teaching performance test writing, and we're going to be teaching multiple choice and MBE test taking. And June will be doing some mindset coaching. So it's all the things that we do at our live boot camp. And it's going to be in a small environment. It was a great success, very helpful for people. And we encourage you to join us for this event. It's certainly more affordable than our live boot camp. The fee for this virtual boot camp is $1,200. And there's a discount if you've already been to one of our boot camps. So just check with us if you qualify for that. You don't have to travel. You don't have to go anywhere. We're going to be starting at 9 a.m. Mountain. Tracy, is that what we were doing on
Yes.
Friday?
Yes.
And we'll be done by 5 p.m. Mountains.
Oh,
Pretty reasonable.
earlier than that.
Earlier. Okay. And then on Saturday, same schedule. And we're going to have a guest speaker, and then we've got some other cool stuff going on. And we will put a link in the podcast and the show notes. We are going to keep the size of this relatively small so that you can get very personalized attention, particularly for the essays, performance tests, MBE instructions. So we hope you'll join us for that. We are excited about it. I think that it makes a difference to get this kind of instruction. Probably when you think about the bang for your buck, for this money, you're going to have access to our coaching staff, to getting personal instruction. If you're not a photo reader, I'm going to teach you photo reading. And if you're already a photo reader, it's going to be a chance for you to enhance your photo reading skills. That is a great opportunity for you to be able to do that. I think that when people are trying to figure out how to spend their dollars, when we talk about this, changing what you're doing, there are very few things that are going to give you as much to the skill sets as this boot camp. Do you agree, Tracey?
There is nothing that's going to give you this kind of exposure and personal help from all of the coaches in all of the areas that you need for the bar exam.
And
This is
so,
one place to get them all in a compact setting over 2 days. And what we have learned from people who have gone through the boot camp is that the lights have come on when all of these cards are put together in the same kind of time frame. And okay, I see how this works with this part of the exam and this part of the writing with this part of the writing and then using the photo reading that you're learning to put it all together and having some work done on your mind maps with us supervising what you're doing there has been helpful for people getting the whole picture.
yeah, the ability to refine the skill set. You may already know how to photo read, but we're going to refine it, or you know how to mind map, we're going to refine that. You've learned the FLA writing system. We're going to refine that. Or selective intuition. We're going to refine that with you. And those are the things that make the difference, that find those extra points that you were looking for. So we would love to see you at Virtual Boot Camp. I think it'll be a great experience. Hope that you will register. The other boot camp experience that we want to let you know about is that we will do another live boot camp here in Denver. We've set that date for October 25th and 26th. There is still you can register right now and get your golden ticket. There are several discounts. There's an early bird discount for registration. There is a discount if you were a prior boot camper if you've been to one of the boot camps. There's even a discount if you're already a photo reader. So lots of ways to make that affordable for you. But again, that's 2 days of live instruction. You come here to Denver and we do all the things that we're talking about in the virtual, but of course we're in person and we've got our coaching staff and there's the ability to make the connections, I think, in a more tangible, personal way, obviously with other students and with us. So again, October 25th and 26th, if you're a February 2025 or even a July 2025 student, and we've got some of those, this would be the ideal boot camp for you to come to live. If you've been at the virtual boot camp, there's a discount for that as well. Great opportunities to get some of that assistance. I also want to talk about this is the time when you should be looking at personal coaching. If you're in our basic course, you can add 8 calls with me or 10 calls with Tracey or Amanda and get those individual coaching calls that I think can make a big difference for you. And I think at this 100-day mark, this is an ideal time to begin to add that. I know a lot of people enroll in our basic course and they work for a while and they say, I'm going to upgrade later. If you are going to upgrade later, this is the later. This is when you want to be doing that. You can find those upgrade links in your online course in the upgrade center right at the top of the course assignments. And if you need help, just reach out to June and she'll be glad to assist you. And by the way, Tracy's going to talk at the end here today. I think your topic was bringing it.
Yep.
And I think probably a sports metaphor, my guess. So we look forward to that. Should we jump to student questions, Trace? All right, let's do it. As results start to come out, I get this kind of question, and I've tried to use this question to represent a lot of the questions I've gotten in the last couple of weeks. Students said, I've reached my limit of attempts in my existing jurisdiction. In their particular case, it was in Texas. And that's a UBE state. And we've got a lot of this in the UBE where there's limits on how many times you can take an exam in a particular jurisdiction. And the question was, can I go to another UBE jurisdiction and then try to get my score waived back into the original jurisdiction? The answer to that question is maybe. And I wish I could be more definitive. It's usually handled on a case by case basis. Most every state will let you petition to be admitted after you get a score that meets their criteria. The thing I want to say most importantly is don't let your term limit, if you will, your attempt limit in jurisdiction. There are jurisdictions, many of them in the UBE, that have no limits whatsoever. And you should sit and attempt to get licensed somewhere first. If you do that, then you can always go back to your original jurisdiction and look to petition for readmission back or admission back into that jurisdiction. But it requires doing some research because each state has its own set of rules. So Texas has a limit of 5. Different states have different limits. Now, the reason that this is so important is that most of the jurisdictions have a May 1st cutoff for applications. So as we're talking today, you've got 7, 8 days to make that decision. And the best way to find this information is to go to the NCBE's website. It's ncbe.org and check out their website. There's all of the details. And then just start contacting the bar examiners directly and finding out, is there a limit? So if you've taken your 5 tries, let's say in Texas, check out New Mexico or check out Missouri or check wherever you want and find out what their rules are and whether or not you're able to sit for that exam. Take that exam and get licensed. The thing I can tell you is that once you have taken and gotten at least a 260 for the UBE, being licensed somewhere, anywhere, changes the whole world. And Tracey, you've seen this as well. When people get licensed somewhere, it even if it's not their original jurisdiction, it makes a difference, right?
Oh, sure. It's your way in, and then from there, you can move around.
Yeah. And so you ought to be doing that. Now, we can't give you individual advice. We're prohibited by our license from doing that. But generally, that would be my advice. But the thing I want to emphasize is don't quit. Don't stop just because you've hit a number in a particular jurisdiction. And I'd add to that, don't keep doing what you were doing before, right? So there you go. Now, along those same lines, I got a lot of questions from people asking about why are the results lower in February's exam than in July's exam? Is the scoring harder in February, or is there some other reason? After I think I'm up now to 70 or 75 exam administrations that I've been through. It's terrifying, isn't it? After looking at them for all these years, I can tell you that if I put February tests in front of you and July tests in front of you, you could not tell the difference. The test is not harder in February than it is in July. And in fact, if we look at the mean MBE scores, they're up slightly this February than they were last February, but not quite as high as July's. Is that because the MBE is harder? No. It's because the percentage of repeat takers is disproportionately much higher in February. And this group of repeat bar takers around the country goes back to what we said at the very beginning. There are people that are chronically taking the test and not doing anything differently, and they are chronically not succeeding on the exam. And when you put all of those people into the pool, it just simply waters down the scores. Now, do the examiners grade more difficult in some places? I would say if you're in Florida or California, yes, I think they do. I think there is a presumption that it's a less qualified crop of candidates. And so the grading seems to be harder. In Florida, I've looked at the essays, they've been released, and the essay questions were not terribly difficult, but the grading was crazy hard. And it resulted in this very low pass rate. But I think the point that we want to emphasize here is don't be afraid of the February exam. If you're doing what you're supposed to do, you'll pass. I mean, that's the reality. And you don't need to worry about February versus July, I think, as much as you need to worry about what jurisdiction you're in. So maybe you don't want to sit in Florida or California. Maybe you want to avoid New York or Texas and you want to take UBE somewhere else. That certainly would make sense to me. You've been following this now for a few years, Tracey. Do you see that trend of grading being different, or is it the mix of people taking the exam in February?
I think you may be on to something. There's more takers in July. There's more people that don't pass in July. Then they just sign up for February and spend most of the fall freaking out instead of working towards making a change in February. I think it may take a couple times not passing before someone takes the step back and says, whoa, this, whatever I'm doing is not working. What happens, unfortunately, is that the superego comes in and tells you you're dumb. You're not going to pass. You're not good enough. Why do you keep doing this? Instead of the superego helping you to step back and take a look and say, what should I do different? The superego just starts critiquing you and tearing you down. And that's why we work so much on the superego to help you calm the superego and tell the superego, if you will, to go sit in the corner. Thank you for all your hard work, but I need to put positive energy to this now. So I think that those results in February are as much a function of people not passing in July and just being paralyzed into the exam in February as anything else.
Yeah, there's zombie bar takers basically, and these zombie bar takers just keep they're the Walking Dead. They just keep taking it and getting the same result. So maybe that's the title of today's episode, the zombie bar taker. The last question that we got relative to results is that we have some students that are passing the 260 threshold, but may not be getting the number that they need, the 266 or 270 or higher number in another UBE jurisdiction. And they're wondering whether or not they should sit for their original jurisdiction again, even though they're licensed somewhere else as they go through character and fitness and get licensed in these other states. My recommendation is I would go ahead and stay in the bar exam world and take this next exam. The momentum that got you over the number is an indicator that you're probably close. In some cases, it's a point or two away from what you need. I would take the exam and just try and get through it. When you know you're licensed somewhere else, sitting for the bar exam is a very different experience than when you have never gotten licensed anywhere. And so I think it's an advantage to you to go ahead and sit for this next exam. So that would be my recommendation if you're in that situation. And of course, we're seeing some of that around the country right now. All right, a couple of other quick study questions, and then we're going to turn it over to Tracey to talk about bringing it. We've got lots of people in the photo reading course. And in the photo reading course, we use something called the memory supercharger paraliminal. Student questions often come up. When should I listen to this paraliminal? It's a audio recording. It takes about 20 minutes to listen to. Should I do it first thing in the morning, midday, or before I go to sleep? The answer is before you go to sleep. You should photo read at night, right before you go to bed, then listen to this paraliminal as you're going off to sleep, drifting off to sleep. And oftentimes you will fall asleep through the paraliminal, and it just helps your brain process what you photo read. So that's where you want to be doing it. Another question we got, and this is typical also of what I see when people are coming out of the course, maybe taking off a period of time and then coming back in and studying. Student that was just starting up again said, it took me all week to get through property, and I'm having a challenge trying to keep up with writing down all the rules. And I'm having a hard time. I'm writing super small to fit all the notes that I can in. Look, kids don't need to do that. This is not how you will pass the subject. First of all, we put in time limits in every assignment. Follow those. We mean them. It's not, here's the time limit for everybody, but you're special. I mean those time limits. I want you to go fast. The second part of this is that you don't need to know all of the rules. And by writing them down, all of them in small type, doesn't help you. The way you learn them is by mind mapping them. You get the paraphrased small words and you get the big picture of what's going on. Again, this is a great reason to come to the boot camp, either live or virtual, so that we can show you that process in some detail. But I worry when I hear that someone's trying to write everything down and they've got it so small they can't read it. That's way too much detail. We've also got a product called bar maps in which we create the mind maps for you. And if you look at those, you'll see they're not in that kind of detail. You just don't need it. But it's that FOMO, isn't it, Tracy? People are afraid that if they don't write down every rule, that somehow they're not getting the subject.
Yeah, and it becomes an automatic response instead of I learned response. Part of what they work is as an attorney is learning to sift through lots and lots of information and pull out what's important and get it somewhere in your head where you can pull it back out later. That's what we're teaching you through the mind maps. You know, what is important here? Not everything is of the same importance. And what do you need to be able to pull back out later? So, our class and our course specifically on mind maps helps you learn how to do that. And then there's no substitute for you practicing. This is the time for you to start using your mind maps. I think it's good to refer to them. Maybe if you're confused on a particular area or relationships within a particular substantive area of law, but I'd say do your own mind map. There's no substitute for doing your own work.
Yeah, I think that's a key. We try to give you these tools to help you, but doing your own work, but not overdoing it, not getting
Yeah.
so caught in the detail and the weeds that you don't see the bigger picture. And I think that's important. So just giving you a sense of that. Again, our view is that you should be trying to take the bigger view. You should try to get the deeper knowledge. You should use the mind maps to coalesce what you're learning, but not try to recreate it. I know that there are people that try to transcribe my lectures word for word. You don't need to do it. The lectures are right there. They're word for word on the screen. You just don't need that level of detail. And I think it becomes counterproductive for you. So that's what we see. And I'm excited that people are out there studying, but I don't think you want to overdo it at this stage. So that's where we're at. This is the season when, again, as we were talking about, people sometimes lose sight of what they've got to do to be successful. And I know that as we get into the sports world to playoffs in hockey and basketball, we still talk about this idea of bringing your best effort. And so, Tracy, I know you wanted to talk about what it means to bring it in the bar exam world. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I know you've got a slide deck here that you want to share with people.
Jackson, Amanda, June, and I were talking this week about how we can bring it more effectively for you all because it's the season where we're looking towards a new bar exam and we have all of you and we care so much about your success. And we care about how you're doing as professionals studying for this exam. But it's also a lament that we have that we cannot do it by ourselves. We have this Q&A opportunity. You should get in on this opportunity. We have the personal coaching. You should get in on that opportunity if you can. We have group coaching, which is part of your course. And we're having not a great number of people jumping on those sessions. You have to bring it. We can't bring anything to you if you don't come and bring it yourself. So let's take a look at that. As Jackson said, this is the season of championships. Unlike in the fall where things are just getting going now, boy, in the last few weeks, right? We've seen NCAA basketball, we've seen women's basketball be highlighted for the first time in history. Wow, was that exciting? We've seen the Masters. We're now into the NBA playoffs, which take just about as long as the whole season. And also the same with hockey and a few other things. So I was thinking this week about what it means to bring it in the context that we're working on with you guys. First of all, take a screenshot of this. These are your boot camp opportunities, May 10 through 11 online, October 25 through 26 in Denver live. You can apply at this quiz.celebration. We just want to have you give us a few words about why you want to be in the boot camp before we accept you into that. So go ahead and take a screenshot of that. This is probably the most immediate way that you can bring it is for signing up for the virtual boot camp because you're going to get such good feedback and personal attention from the coaches that you can't get piecemeal going along. And I was thinking about you all when that happened, about how for 3 quarters of the game, Jamal Murray couldn't score at all. And then in the fourth quarter, he came alive. He started bringing it. And he scored 14 of his 20 points in the fourth quarter. And then at the buzzer, won the game. He never gave up. He brought it every time he went up the floor. And when he was talking after the game, he's just said, my teammates, the people that support me were just encouraging me to keep going, even though I was failing. And at the end, I just put this lob up and went right through the net. I couldn't have done it without the support of my teammates. We see that the gymnastics, NCAA gymnastics finals were last week, and I watched an underdog team that had never won a championship ever in its school's history win the women's championship. And it was so neat to see these women who were used to being called losers or failures suddenly, because they had brought it all year and brought it that day, they were successful and they won the championship. Now we're watching the hockey finals, and I watched the Avs the other night and just saw how hard those guys skate. And the goalies that are just getting disappointed over and over still hang in there and they still give it everything they've got. Jackson mentioned baseball, but I'm thinking about softball too and watching women's softball and just seeing how those ladies and the guys in the NCAA baseball championships, how they just bring it to the field every day and they don't get discouraged if they lose a game. They just keep going. American Idol, The Voice. You see these young people who have not had success in the past. They have had good coaching and they bring it to the mic. They put their all into it. And for some of them, for most of them that get into the top tier, their lives change. So all around, we just see these things that are happening around us. And I'm thinking about all of you bringing it to your bar prep. What are you going to do different? How are you going to use the coaching that we have available for you? How are you going to use your teammates, other people taking the exam to support you and to buoy you up? How are you going to use the paraliminals, your mind maps, photo reading? How are you going to bring it this season to your bar prep so that your result is different? Take action, stay motivated, stay with us, get on these times. These are inspiring times where we can talk to you and you can talk back in the chat box or be on the group coaching with us and tell us how you're doing or be in workshops or be in the boot camp and be around your other students as well as your coaches. Ring it now. Be your own champion. Write your own story. Figure out who you're not and then figure out who you want to be and bring it.
Awesome. Thanks. So as you hit the 100-day mark and you're starting to study, that's our message to you today. Use the resources that we provide, bring your best effort. Let's do things differently to give yourself a chance to be successful. We will see you all again next week and look forward to seeing many of you. We hope at boot camp. Just bring your best effort and we'll see, I think, great results when you do that. Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks for having me.
All right. See you all again next week. Bye bye, everybody.